Hi folks, here with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the propaganda and the fantasies around refugee camps, and how the narrative machine, the globalist controlled media narrative machine, is spinning the refugee camps and the poor terror put upon people who are in these refugee camps, and how they're entitled to come to the first world from the third world. All these third world illiterate peasants are entitled to come to the first world, the Western white or hitherto white Western first world. And that's just it. End of discussion. And if you're against that, if you question it, if you doubt it, then you're a fucking Nazi. You're Hitler. So let's just have a look at this, and it's come up. It's topical in Australia at the moment because the leftist-leaning government here that's pretty much been captured by the gay, lesbian, green left sort of party here in Australia. They're sort of making the moves, the shuffles, the nudges, the pirouettes, and the somersaults into letting alleged refugees in offshore processing camps and through offshore processing systems and processes to come to Australia and stay. Now, some say it's going to open the floodgates for the people smugglers and that sort of thing. But putting that aside for a moment, the argument is that it's the moral and compassionate thing to do. So let's just investigate that. Now, there's a number of the previous government that was centre-right stopped the illegal immigration boats coming, the people smuggler boats coming in from around Asia. Now, it's quite a long trip to come to Australia, but it's not like it's across the English Channel or something. You're looking at well over 1,000 kilometres for a lot of these trips on a boat. And some of these boats are not what you call the most seaworthy vessels, but quite a few people were coming, just in the space of not much more than a year. Something like 50,000 illegals tried to come to Australia, and the centre-right government stopped these boats coming. And everybody was oh wow, that's fantastic. But at the same time that they were stopping the illegals, they were seriously ramping up the illegal or mass immigration on the other side. So whereas they stopped 50,000 coming in illegally, they added like another 150,000 to come in legally. So it was no, and also they lowered the standards for speaking English or having qualifications. So effectively, these illegals didn't need to be illegal anymore. They could just come in through other means without needing to pay the people smugglers. But the result was worse than if the illegal immigration had been allowed. but anyway, so the centre-right government had these offshore detention places that so if you tried to arrive in Australia legally, you were taken to an offshore island where you were given a refugee camp, which, by the way, was air conditioned. You had all free dental, medical, free food, free education, free everything, all laid on for you. And you had the option of returning to the last safe country you were in before coming to or trying to come to Australia. So you could leave at any time you could leave to go to the last safe country you're in, or you could leave to go back to your country of origin at any time. So there was no detention that was stopping you from leaving. The only thing you couldn't do was come to Australia, but you could go anywhere else you wanted or anywhere else that would take you. So you'd think that once they found out, these people who were economic migrants, they weren't really refugees, and certainly not in my view. Once they found out that they could be waiting many years to get to Australia, that they would go, okay, well, the scam didn't work. Let's go back to wherever we came from, or let's go back to the last safe country, which would have been another third world country that they would have embarked from to come to Australia. But they don't want to do that. Now people say, well, it's the activists say, well, that's because they just can't go back to the country because they'd be oppressed. The women can't go back because of misogyny. The men can't go back because they're all gay and they'll be oppressed by the anti-LGBTQ and so on. So they invent all these mythical fantasy reasons why somehow these illiterate peasants that are advanced practices of Marxist ideology, and I really believe that. So they say, well, they just can't go back. That's why they have to stay, and that's why they do stay. Now, what people don't talk about is that, wait a minute, these are illiterate rural peasants who have, by any measure, a low standard of living, and now they come to this island for refugee processing, where they're not really required to prove their refugee status, but where they get air-conditioned accommodation, free medical dental, they're given free schooling where they can learn English and so on. They're given free food that's a much higher standard than they would get in their own country, and free clothing, free blankets. They get Western television. They get movie theaters. They have a standard of living that is many degrees higher than anything they could dream of in their own country. And so the argument that they stay because they're so desperate and it's so dangerous for them in their own country, that's bullshit. That is total bullshit. So these people are staying there because they get this incredibly good standard of living. Now, they're not forcibly repatriated back to the last country of origin, last safe country where they came from, or their original country. They're not being forced to go back, but they have the option of going back at any time. Yet they refuse. So all the exit paths they have, they're refusing, and they're staying now. This is viewed by or I don't think they really believe this, but they wave it around. It's a humanitarian crisis. We're oppressing these people. The people that are keeping them here to go, Hitler! And the only humane thing to do is let them come into the first world country and parasite off the welfare and national medical scheme in the West here. So that's the only humane thing to do. Now, like all the people, other than the globalist paid agitators and propagandists, but like all people, I talk to a lot of people who are quite well-to-do, who all think mass immigration is wonderful, provided that none of those peasants come to live next to them or in their neighbourhood. The mass migration of these peasants is only good provided they're kept well away from my nice tree-lined street and my. I don't want those those kids hanging around my daughter. I don't want that. Oh no, but they can stay over there somewhere. I don't want them in my area. But mass migration is great as long as they're nowhere near me. And the same goes for the climate change policies of increasing the price for electricity. Someone that pays $1,000 or $4,000 a year for electricity, they're well off enough. The electricity goes up to $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 a year. They don't really care. It's not in the overall scheme of things. It doesn't really change anything for them. Now the people at the bottom end are getting wiped out by those price increases, but that's viewed as well. That's their problem for being poor. If they're poor, that's their fault. I don't care. But the other issue is that if electricity is, say, to be rationed so that everybody has to have a much reduced amount of electricity, then no, I don't want that. It's all right if other people don't have access to electricity, but it shouldn't happen to me. I'm a virtuous person. Those other people who are all Hitler and Nazis and fascists, it should happen to them, not to me. So that's again the attitude there of as long as it's happening to someone else, it's fine. But if it happens to me, that's a problem. So you see this, whether it be with climate change or the mass migration or so on. Now these refugees, alleged refugees, you do feel bad for these people, say in the case of earthquakes or say like the civil wars or droughts, and you do feel bad for these people, but that's been happening in these parts of the world forever. Now you can say, well, it shouldn't be happening now. It may have happened forever, but it shouldn't be happening now. Okay, well, let's run with that then. The United Nations comes in and sets up these refugee camps again, free food, free medical, free dental, yada yada. Water's all supplied, bottled water, good quality water, so don't have to drink the bad water from the wells. All this sort of thing. And there's a central building, like a community centre type building, which is air conditioned, so they can go there on their hot days and so on. Now, so well, look at this thing. It's not equivalent to an upper middle class lifestyle that we see in the West, but these people wouldn't have access to that anyway. So that's not a comparison to make. Similarly, it's not what they would have come from. Whatever they're getting at these refugee camps is vastly better than whatever they had. So it's a step up, not a step down. And again, they get the free education, the free everything, free, all supplied. Now, once they get a taste for all this free stuff, which the globalist agitators tell them they're entitled to, then they think, holy shit, I want to go to one of these Western white countries where everything's for free. And again, the globalist agitators gin them up on this. We can get a free house, free everything, free car, free phone, free education, free. You can be a PhD. You can have one of these prestigious jobs. You can walk around like Walter Mitty in some military general suit, chest full of medals, and look how prestigious you'd be. Just think about how the people in the village will look up to you as being the big, great man. And they come away with all these ridiculous fantasies, again, ginned up by United Nations and globalist agitators to go to the West. So they're not genuine refugees. Now, again, in these parts of the world, these things have happened all the time throughout history. They've had their tribal warfare. They've had their population rises quickly during times of bounty, and then they suffer horribly during times of drought or times of civil war and so on, because there are way too many mouths to feed and so on. Now, but if the West or anybody wants to come and help, they should help that. But they should help these people manage their tribe or their nation or their region much better than they are. And these people are contributing handsomely to their own demise. Now, I just want to turn this around and say, why is the West rich? Why is the West rich? Now, the agitators and the goons and the globalists and the communists, all these people will say, well, the West is only rich because they just stole it from everybody else. That's all. Otherwise, the West will be just a bunch of peasants like in Africa and so on. That's utter and absolute nonsense. The West the modern West has created very means to productivity and wealth creation, something that to this day, Africans and people in the subcontinent and the poorer areas of the world, to this day, these people don't understand it. Even people I talk to and try do business with from China and places like, they still do not understand the concept of wealth creation. To them, wealth is a fixed pot of money, absolutely static. And the only way you can get a bit more of it is if you steal from the other guy down the road. That is the only way you can increase your amount. Wealth creation, collaboration to achieve a wealth producing outcome, they've got no concept of it. And and they perceive their wealth can only come by taking money from the West, from those damn evil white devils and so on. Something that's encouraged by the globalists, by the way. That attitude is very much encouraged by the globalists. You even see it in Eastern Europe. I was talking to a Serbian lady who's educated in the West and so on. Talking to her, she believes and has been told and believes as well that the only reason Serbia is poor is because the evil, bad West came and stole everything, which is an absolute, utter, absurd point of view. But nonetheless, she's linking up. The only reason the white West is rich because they stole it all from places like Serbia. And she firmly believes that. The idea that any other explanation could be applied is simply just not on her radar. She just can't compute it. And that's from a place like Serbia, which you'd say was sort of in the middle, somewhere in the middle range, rather than say like some dirt poor African basket case. And I'm talking things like during the Kosovo wars and the eternal wars in that area. Now, even in the area in the Balkans, you look back at the Roman emperors, 2,000 years ago, that sort of thing, and they were saying the areas that caused them the most heartache and anxiety were those areas around what today would be Serbia and Bulgaria, Romania, around there. That's or the old Yugoslavia. That was the area that was causing them the most drama. No matter what they did to try and pacify, fix, buy off, a bribe, whatever they did to try and have peace in that area. It didn't work out. There would always be drama, in tribal drama amongst the locals there, and that forced them to constantly be sending Roman legions there to keep the peace. So that area has been a problem for thousands of years. It's not a new problem that just started yesterday or the day before. It's been an area of conflict and drama for at least 2,000 years. And I believe it'll continue to be a bit like the Middle East, around Israel, Palestine, and around there. That's also been an area of great drama for thousands of years. The Romans again trying to pacify that area, or even the Egyptians beforehand, and so on. So that's been an area of conflict and so on. So all these areas are producing refugee camps and dramas, constant ebbs and flows of people and the dispossessed and so on. To what extent is that the Western's job to pick up the pieces after the drama has hit? I don't agree with that. I think go in and try and prevent these things from happening, sure. But the idea that it's somehow Western responsibility after the fact, I don't accept that. Now, you could say Western, particularly US foreign policy in places like, say, Syria and Iraq and Libya, for example, that's clearly generating a flow of refugees, and there's no disputing that. Now, again, is it the West and Afghanistan? Is it the Western responsibility to take these people? I don't accept that either. The solution would be to have them in another Islamic country, or to have them stay in their countries and fit into the local scene there. But as soon as the Americans or the globalists come into places like Iraq and Afghanistan, the first thing they do, instead of let's make sure they've got clean water, or let's make sure this or that, the first thing they do is set up a gay lesbian counselling service. They move straight away to try and undermine the fabric of that society, like they have in the West, by the way. That's the first thing you do. Let's undermine the fabric of the society. Let's fuck them up as much as we can. That'll create a flow of refugees. I mean, goodness me, what a load of stuff. Creating the problem and then saying we have to pick up the pieces of the problem we created and so on, rather than not create the problem or solve the problem. That's the issue here. So refugee camps are a temporary thing, in my view, until people can be repatriated back to their own country, say the end of the Civil War, or the drought ends, or whatever it is, then they can go back to their country of origin. Or in the case of some people that have travelled around, they can go back to the last safe country. But to reward these people with citizenship or temporary visa status in a first world country and access to all the goodies and benefits of a first world country without any duty or any obligation on their part to deliver some value in the transaction, that is a recipe for total fucking international disaster, and we need to push back against it and stop it. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.